The harder you chase happiness, the less happy you become. I know an elder named Zhou, whose life experience has quietly awakened countless lost doubts. In the first half of his life, he chased worldly success desperately, pushing himself to the limit and living a tight, stressful, and exhausting life. In the second half of his life, he finally woke up, let go of all stubborn obsessions, returned to a plain and simple life, and eventually gained thoroughness, freedom, and peace of mind. The profound ups and downs of his life reveal the most real and heartbreaking truth of adulthood, and completely untie the internal friction and confusion that trouble most people throughout their lives. 20 years ago, old Zhou started with nothing at all. He was born into an ordinary family with no background and no savings, living a difficult and impoverished life. He resided in a cramped, shabby rental house in the urban village, enduring harsh living conditions and the cold reality of life. In those tough days, he deeply tasted the warmth and coldness of human relationships, and bore the disdain, doubt, and cold stares of people around him. At that time, he had a strong and unyielding spirit hidden in his bones. Faced with neglect and prejudice from others, he never complained or felt inferior. Instead, he secretly made a firm vow: he must work harder than anyone else, stand firmly on his own feet, get ahead in life, and rely on his own efforts to change his fate and live a life that deserves respect and admiration. From that day on, he completely abandoned leisure, rest, personal hobbies, and even precious family company. He devoted almost all his time, energy, passion, and youth to making money and pursuing so-called success, regarding material achievement as the only standard of a wonderful life. While other colleagues finished their work on time to relax, chat, and enjoy their spare time, he stayed up late every night polishing work details and revising business plans, often working until 3 or 4 o'clock in the early morning. While others spent their weekends accompanying their families and relaxing their minds, he traveled through wind, rain, and severe weather to visit clients and handle tedious work. While most people were content with a stable salary and an ordinary peaceful life, he kept breaking through his limits, starting businesses, adjusting his career direction, and climbing up step by step, never allowing himself a single moment of slack or indulgence. Driven by his extreme obsession with success, he constantly overworked and sacrificed his physical health. He once suffered from an acute gastritis attack and was rushed to the hospital for emergency treatment. However, before he finished his intravenous drip, he hurriedly pulled out the needle and rushed back to the company to preside over an important meeting. The nurse on duty couldn't help but reprimand him for being too stubborn and reckless with his body, but old Zhou turned a deaf ear to those reminders. At that time, success was the only thing in his mind, and he thought health and rest were insignificant sacrifices on the road to success. In his narrow perception back then, life was a cruel and fierce race with no end and no pause. He firmly believed that once you stop moving forward even for a moment, you will be completely surpassed by others. Once you slack off a little, you will fall from your original position and lose all your advantages. To live a decent and dignified life and hold his head high in front of others, he thought he had no choice but to grit his teeth, endure all hardships, and keep pushing forward relentlessly. After 10 years of non-stop persistence and desperate hard work, old Zhou finally achieved the success he had long dreamed of. He completely walked out of his impoverished and humble past. He owned 2 mature companies and 3 high-quality apartments, with a stable 7-figure annual income, firmly ranking among the top successful people in the eyes of relatives, friends, and peers. At the age of 40, he specially booked the most high-end local club to hold a grand banquet for cooperation partners and friends. Everyone present stood up, raised their glasses, and spoke highly of his achievements and abilities. Dressed in a neat formal suit, he stood under the bright spotlight, looking brilliant, glorious, and invincible. At that moment, he outperformed almost all his peers, defeated those who once looked down on him, and fulfilled all the definitions of success given by the worldly standards. However, after the bustling hustle and bustle gradually faded and all the guests left one after another, only he was left alone in the empty and huge private room. Staring at the messy dining tables and the quiet, empty hall, this strong and seemingly unbreakable successful man suddenly couldn't hold back his tears. No one around him could understand his inner loneliness and emptiness. No one knew that behind this glamorous and envied glory lay endless physical exhaustion, mental loneliness, and irreparable inner loss. After a long period of silence, he slowly said a sentence that strikes a deep chord with countless adults. I have gained all the material wealth and glory that people dream of, but I can never get back the simple, pure, and heartfelt happiness I once owned. He often falls into nostalgic memories of the shabby rental house 20 years ago. Back then, he had nothing at all, living a simple and rough life in a small room of more than 10 square meters. The room was cold in winter, hot in summer, drafty and poorly conditioned. Yet after a whole day of tired work, a bowl of hot instant noodles and a solid, peaceful sleep were enough to comfort his tired body and fill his heart with sincere contentment. He had no money, no status, and no fame in those days, but his heart was full of passion and hope, and he could sleep soundly every night. Now he lives in a spacious and luxurious house with abundant wealth and comfortable material conditions, but he suffers from severe insomnia and inner restlessness every night. There is always a deep void in his heart that no amount of wealth, fame, or worldly glory can ever fill. The most regretful and painful thing in old Zhou's life is that he lost the most precious and warm family affection in the process of chasing success. Nowadays, his mobile phone stores hundreds of contacts from various social and business circles, and his personal network is extremely broad. However, in every lonely late night when he feels tired and lost, scrolling through the long contact list, he cannot find a single sincere friend who can listen to his troubles and comfort his heart. His young daughter, who once clung to him every day and relied on him wholeheartedly, has gradually become sensible but alienated from him as she grows up. One weekend, his daughter had looked forward to spending time with him for a long time, simply hoping to go outside and fly a kite with her beloved father. But endless word calls and sudden client messages completely destroyed this warm and precious moment. The little girl held the kite tightly and waited for him silently for 40 minutes without making any noise. In the end, she did not lose her temper or complain, but said softly and sensibly, "Dad, you can go to work. I can play by myself." At that simple sentence, old Zhou's heart was filled with intense helplessness, guilt, and self-blame. He had spared no effort to make money and tried his best to provide the best material life and living conditions for his child, but he finally realized the cruel truth. He had gained abundant wealth and social status, but missed all the precious growth moments of his daughter's childhood. He gave his child a superior material life, but gradually lost the closest and warmest father-daughter affection between them. His wife, who once endured hardships with him and accompanied him through the most difficult and toughest days of his life, has gradually become a stranger who has nothing to talk to. In the cramped rental house in the past, the two of them could chat freely about dreams and future expectations all night long, and every ordinary day was full of warmth and hope. But now, living in a spacious luxury house, they barely exchange a few words every day, leaving only endless indifference and estrangement. This is the cruelest paradox in life. The harder you chase happiness, the faster happiness escapes from you. The more obsessively you pursue perfection and glory, the more incomplete and empty your life will become. The more eager you are to possess everything, the easier it is for you to lose the most precious things. Most of us are actually repeating old Zhou's life trajectory. When we are young, we always believe that happiness is earning more money, climbing higher social ladders, gaining more face and recognition. We are driven by worldly values to run forward crazily, daring not to stop, dare not be ordinary, and dare not admit our mediocrity. We regard plainness as incompetence, stability as wasted life, and solitude as loneliness, consuming half of our lives in comparison, competition, and internal friction. We always hold the naive belief that as long as we work hard enough, life will be perfect. As long as we struggle desperately, we can laugh without worries. But time is the fairest and most sober judge. All the health you overdraw will eventually backfire on you. All the company you miss will turn into lifelong regret. All the forced excitement will eventually vanish into nothingness. All the excessive obsession will turn into endless internal friction. The biggest foolishness in life is constantly asking for things from the outside world while neglecting and desolating your inner self. We chase wealth and end up being bound by wealth. We chase connections and end up being dragged down by worldly sophistication. We chase glamour and end up trapped by superficial dignity. We chase others' pace and end up losing our true selves. A truly thorough life never lies in crazy pursuit, but in proper letting go. Here are some sober truths of life. People who can understand them will get rid of confusion and gain new life. First, life needs no comparison. Everyone has their own growth cycle and blooming season. Never compare your ordinary daily life with others' highlight moments. Some people achieve fame at a young age, while others succeed late in life. Some people have a smooth journey, while others grow steadily through hardships. There is no absolute standard for a good life. You admire others' glamour, and others also envy your stability. Living in comparison means living in suffering all your life. Sticking to your own rhythm means keeping your own blessings. Second, all anxiety comes from excessive obsession and insatiable desire. Most people feel tired not because life is too hard, but because they want too much. They pursue perfect everything, universal recognition, and continuous progress, but they refuse to accept the ups and downs of life and the imperfections of reality. Forced perfection is a heavy shackle. Indifferent gains and losses bring thorough calmness. When your heart becomes simple, your life will be smooth. When you let go of obsession, all troubles will disappear. Third, worldly excitement is mostly illusory, and solitude is the top freedom in life. Mediocre people love gathering and vanity, while sober people prefer tranquility and self-healing. Invalid social intercourse consumes your energy, and false interpersonal relationships drag down your mood. There is no need to force yourself to fit in any circle, no need to cater to others deliberately, and no need to please irrelevant people. The top demeanor of an adult is a clean social circle, a simple life, free emotions, and a peaceful heart. Fourth, never explain yourself to anyone. People who understand you need no explanation, and people who don't understand you won't believe your words. Everyone has their own prejudices and standpoints. No matter how kind and excellent you are, there will always be people who pick on you, question you, and slander you. There is no need for argument, entanglement, or flattery. Life is your own, needing no definition from others. Days are your own, needing no recognition from the outside world. Silent precipitation, quiet self-healing, and slow growth are the best way to live. Fifth, letting go of others is kindness, and letting go of yourself is rebirth. Do not dwell on past regrets, do not tangle with trivial trifles, and do not consume the rest of your life for unworthy people and things. Life is only a few decades long. There is no need to compete with yourself or quarrel with life. One thought of letting go brings all freedom. One thought of relief brings sweetness to the rest of life. 6. True happiness never means having everything, but being content with everything. Wealth does not equal peace, and power does not equal freedom. The real happiness in life is never extravagant wealth and high status, but healthy body, safe family, peaceful mind, and stable days. Free meals and warm clothes are blessings. Peace all year round is perfection. Inner tranquility is the top configuration of life. After half a lifetime of experience, we finally understand that life does not need to be lived too hard. Excessively eager pursuit is prone to failure. Excessively persistent retention is prone to loss. Excessively serious entanglement is prone to exhaustion. The best state of life is relaxation and letting nature take its course. Unhurried, so calm and steady, non-comparative, so free and peaceful, non-obsessive, so comfortable and joyful all year round. For the rest of your life, may you stop internal friction, stay away from noise, look down on gains and losses, and heal yourself gently. There is no need to catch up with anyone or please anything. Keep your own rhythm, live your own ordinary life. No need for brilliant success, just peace of mind. No need for public admiration, just stable and peaceful rest of life. Many people will immediately raise an objection after hearing old Zhou's story. Is it wrong to strive for a better material life? Does letting go of obsession equal giving up all ambition and drive? This is a critical misunderstanding that needs to be cleared up from the very beginning. Old Zhou never opposes hard work, nor does he advocate lazy inaction and lying flat all day long. What he resists is blind struggle driven by other people's greed, and meaningless self-sacrifice forced by shallow blood ties. Hard work for your own small family, for your inner sense of accomplishment, and for the ability to take good care of aging parents is worthy of lifelong persistence. But burning yourself to the bone just to satisfy lazy relatives' endless demands is nothing but foolish self-abuse, that only leaves you with endless regret in later years. In daily life, we can easily split hard-working people into two totally different groups. The first kind sets clear boundaries before throwing themselves into work. They stay overtime to lift their own living standard, save travel funds to accompany their parents on trips, and squeeze spare hours to witness their children's growth. They know how to draw a firm line when others put forward excessive requests. They will never empty their bank accounts to fill others' bottomless desire, nor abandon family warmth to attend hollow social gatherings. Their efforts revolve around themselves and their closest kin. They refuse to become a permanent free ATM for distant relatives. The second group lives entirely in other people's eyes. They toil day and night just to avoid gossip from the clan. Even with tight household funds, they will borrow money to meet their cousins' luxury consumption needs. They readily give up rest to solve trivial troubles that other adults can handle independently. They mistake blind compromise for family loyalty and unlimited generosity for kindness, until their energy, savings and precious family affection are completely drained by people who only take but never give. Old Zhou once shared a deeply touching story with me on his balcony during a late autumn tea chat. After adjusting his pace and drawing clear lines with greedy kin, he met a worn-out young man in the community park one weekend morning. The young man had heavy dark circles under his eyes and a face full of weariness. After casual conversation, Old learned his plight. He worked overtime every weekend without exception, barely having a quiet dinner with his pregnant wife. Worse still, his unemployed elder cousin texted him every few days to borrow money for video games, alcohol and new electronic gadgets. Even when his wife needed regular prenatal examinations and the family budget was stretched thin, he still scraped together cash for fear of being labeled cold-hearted by the whole family. After hearing Old Zhou's decades of loss and awakening, the young man burst into silent tears on the park bench. He had long felt empty and drained, yet traditional ideas about blood ties trapped him firmly, making him dare not utter a single no to any relative. This young man's dilemma is far from unique. Thousands of men and women are trapped in the same cycle of self-sacrifice. From childhood, we are taught to be tolerant and generous to all relatives, warned that refusing requests will bring bad reputations to the whole household. Yet no one ever tells us tolerance must be mutual, and kindness requires solid bottom lines. One-sided concession never wins genuine respect. Instead, it makes greedy people take your softness for weakness, pressing you for more outrageous favors without a trace of guilt. Human nature follows an unchanging rule: People never value things they gain effortlessly. If you hand over money, connections and help every time someone opens their mouth, they will treat your dedication as an obligation, never remembering your countless past favors. The moment you cannot satisfy their wants, all your previous kindness will be erased instantly, and you will be painted as an ungrateful villain overnight. Looking back on his younger years, Zhou often says that his boundaryless softness spoiled a whole group of insatiable relatives. What started as small living expense loans gradually escalated into demands for brand new cars, urban apartments, full wedding costs and cosmetic surgery fees. If he had set clear limits 10 years earlier, he would not have wasted massive sums of money, countless precious rest hours and irreparable family warmth on people who only drained him without repayment. Most people choose silent endurance to avoid conflicts with relatives. They fear awkward festival dinners and gossip spreading across the small town, thinking temporary compromise can maintain superficial peace. Yet this peace built on your grievance is extremely fragile. Entitled kin will not stop making demands just because you hold your tongue. They will assume you still have hidden resources to squeeze, bringing forward more absurd requests as time passes. Temporary silence may dodge a single quarrel, yet it cannot resolve the root of endless exploitation. Only calm, sincere and firm statements of your bottom line can fundamentally break this draining cycle. Many hold a compromising viewpoint. Even greedy relatives deserve superficial harmony for the sake of elderly family members. This logic sounds reasonable on the surface, yet it ignores long-term mental damage to you and negative impacts on your spouse and children. Just like Zhou's experience, years of catering to distant kin's unreasonable demands left his wife feeling wronged and alienated, creating a wide gap between the couple. He missed countless precious moments of his daughter's childhood due to trivial clan troubles, leading to estrangement between father and daughter. It is utterly unwise to hurt your lifelong companions just to please distant guests who only care about your wealth. Your spouse and children are the most precious treasure in life. All superficial social bonds cannot compare to them. Now Zhou sticks to a calm, regular daily routine. He rises at 6 every morning for lakeside walks, picks fresh ingredients at the morning market, and cooks hearty simple meals for his wife and daughter at noon. In quiet afternoons, he reads physical books and tends potted flowers on the balcony, or cycles with his daughter to suburban wild trails to watch streams and wild blossoms. He only handles 2 hours of corporate advisory work daily, firmly rejecting meaningless banquets centered on vanity and interest. He no longer chases exaggerated wealth or empty fame, nor pays attention to slander spread by relatives who cut contact with him voluntarily. When mutual acquaintances pass on negative remarks about him, he only offers a faint smile, without explanation or angry counterargument. He repeated many times during our talks that genuine inner peace never comes from proving your correctness to everyone. It stems from ceasing to rely on others' judgment to define your self-worth. When young, he cared excessively whether others called him successful and generous, spending decades living by standards set by the crowd. Now he judges his life solely through personal inner feelings. Can I fall asleep soundly without disruptive work and keen calls at night? Can I chat casually about trivial daily trivia with my wife after supper? Do I have spare time to listen to my daughter's funny school anecdotes? These trivial warm fragments are wealth no amount of money or high social status can buy. Most people spend the bulk of their lives chasing mass-defined markers of success, luxury mansions, premium vehicles, huge deposit balances, extensive social networks and constant praise. We mistakenly believe owning all external symbols equals complete happiness, ignoring simple warmth hidden in ordinary days. A cup of mild tea beneath sunset glow, a slow post-dinner family stroll, a quiet night free of disturbing messages, a lazy weekend untroubled by all kinds of demands. These easily overlooked small moments form the core of a fulfilling life. If you are still trapped in endless requests from entitled relatives, or worn thin by constant comparison with those around you. Pause all trivial tasks and ask yourself 3 heartfelt questions. First, are the goals you struggle for your true inner desire, or standards forced on you by others? Second, if you keep sacrificing rest, family time and mental stability to satisfy others' greed, will you harbor no regrets in middle and old age? Third, if you lost all wealth and connections one day, who would take initiative to care for your physical discomfort and inner loneliness, instead of rushing to beg you for favors? The answers will pull you out of chaotic vanity chasing. Those who truly love you will never force endless sacrifice from you, and genuine happiness never requires you to exhaust yourself to grasp it. Let go of meaningless competition and vanity comparison. Firmly reject unreasonable requests that drain your spirit. Cut off toxic relationships filled with grievance and anxiety. Slow your hurried pace to discover gentle beauty hidden in plain life. Happiness will never flee once you stop chasing it frantically. It lingers quietly beside you, hidden in every calm, ordinary day, waiting for you to slow down and perceive its warmth. Life's journey does not need crowds cheering you on, nor does it require a road paved with material wealth. As long as your heart stays peaceful, content and free of obsession, every mundane day can be filled with soft, lasting joy that no worldly glory can ever rival. Extra long follow-up text pure continuation, copy directly, large volume for full 1-hour reading. We often confuse the pursuit of progress with blind craving, and mistake family obligation for unlimited self-sacrifice. And this misunderstanding has trapped countless men and women in invisible cages year after year. Many people will say that blood ties are irreplaceable, so we ought to tolerate all bad behaviors from relatives. But they ignore a core truth: kinship is a two-way bond, not a one-sided charity fund. A real family connection requires mutual care, mutual tolerance and mutual understanding. If only one person keeps giving while others keep taking without any feedback, this relationship is no longer family love, but a parasitic attachment that feeds on your time, money and inner peace. Old Zhou used to fail to figure out this simple truth for a long time, and that's why he wasted 20 precious years of his life catering to people who never cared about his pain and hardship. When he was still obsessed with gaining recognition from all relatives, he once endured an extremely embarrassing spring festival gathering that he would never forget. Every year, all branches of the family would gather at his parents' house for the New Year's Eve dinner, and every year, the topic of conversation would unconsciously shift to his income, real estate and business scale. Every aunt and uncle would take turns putting forward all kinds of demands, and every young cousin would implicitly hint that he should give them financial support or job opportunities. At that dinner, a distant elder even stood up publicly, telling all the juniors present that everyone should rely on old Zhou to solve all life troubles, as if his hard-earned achievements were public property belonging to the whole big family. At that moment, he forced a stiff smile and swallowed all the discomfort in his heart, for fear of causing a quarrel and making his parents lose face in front of everyone. Back then, he thought this was the price of maintaining family harmony, but later he realized that such superficial harmony only brought him endless mental torture, and none of those relatives would ever consider how much pressure he bore behind his glamorous surface. After he drew clear boundaries and stopped responding to unreasonable demands, many people around him tried to persuade him to soften his attitude. Some elders visited his home specially, preaching old-fashioned ethics to him, saying that he was cold-blooded and ungrateful for cutting off contact with blood relatives. Some former business partners who had a good relationship with those greedy kin also hinted that he should ease his stance, otherwise his social reputation would be damaged in the small local circle. Even his mother secretly shed tears many times, worrying that other people would gossip about their whole family and label them as snobbish rich folks who abandon poor relatives. Faced with all these external pressures, old Zhou did not get angry or compromise easily. He patiently told his mother every night about all the grievances he had endured over the past 2 decades, listed countless times he lent money and gave favors without receiving a single word of gratitude, and showed her his physical examination reports full of chronic illnesses caused by long-term anxiety and overwork. Gradually, his mother began to understand how heavy a burden her son had carried along all these years, and she finally stood firmly on his side, refusing to pass on any more unreasonable requests from other relatives to him. It is extremely common for parents to be trapped by outdated concepts of kinship. Most elders grow up in an era that values group harmony above individual feelings, so they habitually ask their children to yield and compromise to avoid outside criticism. They cannot bear the judgmental eyes of neighbors and distant kin, and they often push their own sense of shame onto their offspring, forcing young people to sacrifice their own happiness to maintain the so-called family reputation. However, reputation built on endless self-abasement is hollow and meaningless. If you have to drain your savings, sacrifice your family's warmth and torture your own mind just to win a few empty compliments from others, this kind of good reputation is not worth holding onto at all. Real dignity never comes from blindly satisfying other people's greed. It comes from living a stable, peaceful life without being controlled by anyone's excessive expectations. We can observe a universal rule in interpersonal relationships. Those who value you will never make you choose between your own life and their demands, while those who only value your resources will constantly force you to make compromises for their own benefit. The greedy cousins, nagging aunts and lazy uncles in old Zhou's big family only took the initiative to contact him when they needed money or connections. When he was trapped in business crisis and suffered severe physical discomfort, none of them sent a single message to inquire about his condition, let alone take the initiative to offer help. When he lost a big client and faced huge operating pressure one year, he hid his anxiety and did not tell any relatives. Yet all of them were busy asking him to cover various large expenses for their children within that same month. This sharp contrast made him completely wake up to the true nature of those people. They loved his wealth and influence, not him as a person. Many people delay setting boundaries because they harbor unrealistic fantasies, thinking that if they keep being generous and patient enough, those selfish relatives will one day feel guilty and learn to reciprocate kindness. But human desire is insatiable, and endless concession will only breed more insatiability. Every time you agree to an unreasonable request, you are lowering the bottom line others set for you, letting them believe they can put forward even more excessive requirements next time. There is no threshold to their greed, so there is no end to their demands. Old Zhou once tested this truth repeatedly. At first, he only lent small amounts of money to his cousin Leo, thinking Leo would work hard and pay back the funds soon. After Leo easily got the money without paying any price, he began to ask for larger sums, and gradually put forward demands for cars and wedding expenses. Every soft concession only fueled his laziness and arrogance, and he never planned to earn money through his own labor. Learning to say a calm, firm no is an essential lesson every adult must learn, not a sign of cruelty or ungratefulness. Refusing others' unfair demands does not mean cutting off all normal contact with relatives. It means separating sincere family love from parasitic exploitation. Old Zhou still keeps gentle contact with a few sensible cousins who know how to be grateful and independent. These young people never take the initiative to ask him for money or job shortcuts, and they will take the initiative to send him homemade snacks during festivals, chat with him about ordinary trivialities, and care about his physical condition from time to time. When they encounter real difficulties that are out of their control, they will consult him politely instead of making arbitrary demands, and they will always remember to repay his small help in other ways. This is the healthy two-way kinship that everyone longs for, without exploitation, without pressure, only sincere concern and mutual respect. Living without the burden of other people's greed brings unimaginable changes to one's mental state, and Old Zhou's daily life is the best proof of this. Before he set clear boundaries, His mobile phone would ring non-stop from morning till night, filled with all kinds of begging messages and nagging calls that made his heart race every time the phone vibrated. Now he only receives peaceful greetings from his closest family and a few sincere friends every day, and he can turn off his work mobile phone after 7 o'clock every evening without worrying about sudden disturbing calls ruining his rest. He used to spend most of his holidays dealing with various family trivialities and entertaining demanding relatives, but now he can freely arrange his spare time to do what he truly loves. Sometimes he takes his wife to climb nearby mountains, sometimes he drives his daughter to the countryside to pick wild fruits, sometimes he just sits quietly on the balcony reading thick books without anyone interrupting his train of thought. These simple, free leisure moments were completely unavailable to him in the first half of his life, when he was trapped by endless requests from kin. A lot of people mistakenly believe that wealth can fill inner emptiness, but old Zhou's life experience fully proves the opposite point of view. Wealth can solve material troubles such as housing, food and medical treatment, but it can never mend the wounds caused by emotional exploitation, nor can it buy a peaceful heart free of anxiety. Many wealthy people all over the world fall into the same trap as old Zhou in their early years. They devote all their energy to accumulating wealth, thinking that enough money can win everyone's admiration and bring complete happiness, only to find themselves surrounded by crowds who only covet their assets, with no one who truly cares about their inner feelings. Without clear boundaries between you and people around you, no amount of fortune can bring you a sense of security and satisfaction, because there will always be a steady stream of people coming to take advantage of your resources, draining your energy little by little until you collapse mentally and physically. Another crucial point worth reflecting on is the influence your way of handling kinship exerts on your children. If you always compromise blindly to satisfy greedy relatives in front of your kids, you will unconsciously implant a wrong value system in their minds, making them believe that they must sacrifice their own interests to cater to other people's demands all their lives. But if you can calmly and firmly stick to your reasonable bottom line while maintaining sincere kindness to those who respect you, you will set a good example for your children, teaching them to respect themselves first before treating others well. Old Zhou's daughter's change fully reflects this subtle influence. When her father was always busy satisfying other relatives' demands and ignored her growth, she became quiet, sensitive and used to suppressing her own needs. After her father slowed down his pace and learned to reject unreasonable requests, he spent plenty of high-quality time accompanying her, and the little girl gradually became outgoing, confident and brave enough to politely turn down inappropriate requests from others when she encountered them at school. This subtle change in her personality made old Zhou deeply realize how important it is to build a healthy life rhythm for the next generation. As we grow older, we will gradually understand that life's most precious resources are not money, real estate or social status, but limited time, stable physical health and unperturbed inner peace. Time can never be recovered once wasted. Physical damage caused by long-term anxiety cannot be completely repaired easily, and a heart that has been tortured for years will take a very long time to heal back to calmness. It is the most uneconomical deal in the world to exchange these three irreplaceable treasures for empty praise and temporary superficial harmony with greedy relatives. No matter how loud others talk about so-called family loyalty, you must stick to your own judgment, and never let other people's outdated moral kidnapping make you abandon your own peace and happiness. In the final analysis, the true meaning of happiness is not to satisfy all the expectations that others place on you, but to live in line with your own inner standards, without being dragged down by the endless desires of people who only take from you. You have the full right to prioritize your immediate family's happiness over other people's random needs, and you never need to feel guilty for protecting your own life from unnecessary exploitation. When you stop crazily chasing the recognition and demands of selfish relatives, When you learn to close your palm instead of stretching it out to satisfy everyone's greed, happiness will naturally settle beside you, hiding in every quiet sunset, every warm family dinner and every undisturbed peaceful night that you once missed for decades. This plain, steady sense of serenity is the greatest reward you can give yourself after walking through all the chaos and exhaustion of your early life. Long extra sequel. We often waste decades catering to entitled relatives out of blind filial piety and fear of gossip, only to find those blood relations treat our kindness as a free cash machine and our concessions as weakness. For a long time after old Zhou set firm boundaries, the greedy side of the clan never stopped stirring up trouble, and their endless schemes finally backfired completely, bringing a thoroughly satisfying reckoning that anyone who's been drained by parasitic kin will find deeply cathartic. After old Zhou cut off all financial handouts and flatly rejected every unreasonable request, Aunt Mabel, Uncle Ray and Cousin Leo immediately launched a vicious smear campaign throughout the hometown. They visited every family acquaintance, every old neighbor, every distant branch of the clan, spinning vicious lies non-stop. They claimed old Zhou turned cold and heartless after getting rich, abandoned all blood ties, refused to help struggling poor relatives, and even accused him of forgetting the hardships the family endured together decades ago. Leo posted long, fabricated complaints on local social groups, painting himself as a helpless poor kid abandoned by a wealthy, cruel elder cousin. And Mabel gathered a group of gossipy middle-aged women at the market every morning to badmouth old Zhou, twisting every small past favor into a calculated act of vanity. Their only goal was to pressure old Zhou into softening his stance, force him to resume paying for their extravagant lives, and manipulate public opinion to shame him into submission. At first, old Zhou's mother grew anxious every time she heard these rumors, begging him to make a few concessions just to quiet the chatter. Many neutral relatives also came to mediate, urging him to give a little face to the elders and don't be so hard on young Leo. But old Zhou stayed calm and unshaken. He did not rush to argue or lash out in anger. He quietly sorted out every piece of evidence he had kept over the years, transfer records for countless loans he'd never demanded repayment for, chat screenshots of endless outrageous demands, receipts for dozens of expensive family banquets he fully funded alone, even old photos of him slaving away alone while those same relatives idled at home drinking and gambling. He stored all the files neatly on his phone, waiting for the moment they crossed an unforgivable line. That breaking point arrived on the Lunar New Year gathering the following year. The whole family gathered at the ancestral home, and Aunt Mabel deliberately brought up the topic of old Zhou's wealth in front of all the elders, sobbing and putting on a dramatic show. She wailed that her son could not afford a wedding house, her daughter could not afford overseas art tuition, all because old Zhou selfishly hoarded his fortune and refused to lift a finger for blood kin. Leo jumped in right away, raising his voice and accusing old Zhou of looking down on the poor, of trampling on family ethics, even claiming old Zhou owed him tens of thousands in compensation for the hardship of being looked down on all these years. Uncle Ray chimed in, demanding old's downtown apartment be handed over to his teenage son immediately, and several easily swayed elderly relatives nodded along, pressuring old Zhou to yield right then and there. The entire room turned to stare at him, every eye filled with accusatory expectation, fully convinced the slander they'd been fed for months. This time, old Zhou did not lower his head or force a stiff smile to swallow the grievance. He leaned back in his chair, calm and composed, and slowly placed his phone on the wooden table in the center for everyone to see. Without raising his voice, he began to lay out every cold, irrefutable truth one by one, his tone steady yet razor-sharp, cutting through all their fabricated victimhood in an instant. He pulled up years of bank transfer records first, scrolling them across the screen for every guest to view. He counted out every sum he'd lent without collateral, every cash-red envelope handed out during festivals, every expensive meal he'd covered for the entire clan over more than a decade. For 15 consecutive spring festivals, I paid for the full family feast, bought gifts for every elder, and gave pocket money to every young person here. When Leo quit his stable part-time job to game and drink all day, I lent him money 3 separate times to pay his rent and living costs, never once asking for repayment. When Aunt Mabel's clothing store failed, I printed thousands of flyers at my studio's expense and sent clients her way for free. When Uncle Ray's family couldn't pay utility bills, I transferred money to their account without them even asking. All of you sat here enjoying my generosity year after year, never offering a single hand when I pulled all-nighters to build my business, never checking in when I was hospitalized with severe gastritis, never sent a cent to help me through my early penniless days. Now you stand here crying and accusing me of being ungrateful. Where was your gratitude when I had nothing? Next, he pulled up their unfiltered chat logs, full of arrogant, demanding messages sent late at night without a single greeting or word of thanks. He read aloud Leo's texts demanding a sports car worth hundreds of thousands, and Mabel's endless pleas for cosmetic surgery funds and overseas study fees, Uncle Ray's unreasonable demand for a fully furnished downtown mansion handed over for free. None of you ever came to me to chat or care about my life. You only message and call when you need to take money or grab favors from me. When I politely turn down impossible requests, you immediately spread rumors to ruin my reputation, twist all my past kindness into cruelty. You do not treat me as family, you treat me as an unlimited ATM machine you believe you are entitled to drain dry for your lazy, extravagant whims. Then he recounted the night his daughter stood alone holding a cat for 40 minutes waiting for him, his voice soft but heavy with unhealed hurt. I missed my child's entire childhood running around solving all your trivial problems. I traded warm nights with my wife to cater to your endless demands. I ruined my sleep and damaged my health to fund your unnecessary luxuries, yet you never once spared a thought for my small immediate family. You demand I sacrifice my wife and daughter's peaceful life to satisfy your endless greed, and you dare stand in front of all the elders preaching family loyalty to me. Loyalty requires mutual care, not one-sided exploitation. One by one, every lie they fabricated crumbled to dust. The onlooking elders fell silent, their accusing gazes fading into awkward shame. And Mabel's fake sobs cut off mid-sentence, her face burning bright red with embarrassment. Leo froze completely, unable to utter a single retort, all his fabricated grievances exposed as shameless greed. Uncle Ray stared at the table, too ashamed to lift his eyes to meet anyone's gaze. All the neutral relatives who'd been manipulated into pressuring old Zhou hung their heads, realizing they'd been duped by months of malicious gossip. The entire room's atmosphere flipped instantly. Where there had once been collective condemnation toward old Zhou, now there was only quiet judgment falling on the 3 greedy troublemakers. Old Zhou did not stop there. He laid out clear, non-negotiable rules once more, loud enough for every person in the ancestral hall to hear clearly. From this day forward, I will only provide modest living support for my aging parents, who cared for me through my poorest youth. I will no longer lend any money, offer free business resources, or sacrifice my family's time for any of you 3 Leo, and Mabel, Uncle Ray. Anyone who continues spreading slander about me or my wife and daughter will receive a formal legal warning letter for defamation, and I will cut off all contact permanently, even at ancestral gatherings. For the other cousins and relatives who treat me with mutual respect and never make parasitic demands, we can maintain casual, warm normal contact, but financial handouts of any kind are entirely off the table for everyone. No one dared to argue back. All the elders present knew the evidence old Zhou showed was undeniable, and they could not defend the trio's shameless, entitled behavior any longer. After the New Year dinner ended, and Mabel, Leo and Uncle Ray left the ancestral home without a single goodbye, too humiliated to linger and face the crowd's silent disapproval. Their months-long smear campaign collapsed entirely overnight. Every neighbor and clan member who once believed their lies now saw through their greedy scheming, and they became the subject of quiet gossip and disdain around the hometown instead of old Zhou. The trio tried to fight back in the weeks following the dinner, but every scheme backfired horribly. Leo went around town begging other distant relatives for loans, repeating his fabricated sob stories. Yet no one was willing to trust him anymore. Everyone knew he wasted all funds on entertainment and refused steady work. No one lent him a single dollar, and he ended up stuck without rent money, forced to move into a tiny shabby rental room far from the city center. And Mabel's clothing store lost all casual local clients after word spread of her slanderous tactics. Regular shoppers stopped dropping by, and her business collapsed completely within 2 months, leaving her drowning in unpaid debts. Uncle Ray's teenage son had hoped to rely on O's free city apartment to skip dorm fees, but with no one to foot the bill, he had to take multiple part-time campus jobs to afford basic housing during college, forced to learn hard responsibility the hard way, something his father had never bothered to teach him. Every selfish, greedy demand they spent years throwing at old Zhou vanished, as they were finally forced to face the consequences of their own laziness and entitlement with no one left to leech off. Meanwhile, old Zhou's life flourished more than ever without their toxic drain. Freed from endless nagging calls and manipulative family drama, his chronic insomnia faded completely. He slept soundly every night, spent every weekend hiking, fishing and wandering farmers' markets with his wife and daughter, building countless warm new family memories he missed for decades. His small consulting work ran smoothly with minimal stress, as he no longer wasted business resources catering to his relatives' useless side ventures. His wife's cold estrangement melted away. The couple chatted late into the night again like they had in their young poor rental days, full of relaxed laughter and shared quiet joy. His daughter grew bright, confident and carefree, no longer quietly waiting alone for a father always pulled away by other people's selfish requests. Occasionally, Aunt Mabel would send a timid, half-hearted apology message months later, trying to wheedle financial support once again, but old Zhou never replied. Leo even tried to run into him at the market to put on a pitiful act, yet old Zhou simply nodded politely and walked away without stopping to chat, refusing to reopen the door to endless exploitation. They lost all power to manipulate him, their guilt-tripping tactics useless now that everyone knew their true greedy nature. No more elders would pressure old Zhou on their behalf, no crowds would side with their fake victimhood, no one would listen to their slanderous gossip anymore. All the unfair burden old Zhou carried for 20 years shattered in that single New Year's speech, and the entitled king received a well-deserved, permanent fall from the free benefits they'd taken for granted for so long. This is the satisfying truth all people drained by parasitic relatives need to grasp. Endless kindness without firm boundaries only breeds endless greed. When you finally gather the courage to lay out all the truth calmly, draw clear non-negotiable lines, and refuse to let others feed off your hard work and peace, all their manipulative power vanishes instantly. Their gossip, guilt-tripping and fake sorrow only hold power as long as you stay silent and swallow their unfairness. Stand your ground, present unshakable evidence of your past generosity, and call out their entitlement openly in front of all witnesses, and the whole clan will see exactly who the real selfish villains are. You do not owe any distant kin your savings, your career connections or your precious family time. Your wealth, health and quiet happiness belong solely to you and your immediate loved ones. Those who only appear when they need something and abandon you during hardship do not deserve a single ounce of your compassion or sacrifice. Cut off the parasitic drain without guilt. Let them face the natural consequences of their own laziness and greed, and you will unlock a life of unbroken peace, warm family joy and complete freedom you never could experience while catering to their endless demands. Watching their manipulative schemes crumble and their unfair leverage disappear is the most cathartic, satisfying reward for finally choosing to prioritize yourself and the people who truly love you unconditionally. Final Epilogue Sequel. Years have slipped by since that explosive New Year's dinner where old Zhou laid all the truth bare and broke free from his entitled relatives, once and for all. The three troublemakers and Mabel, Leo and Uncle Ray never regained the easy, handout-filled life they once took for granted, and every twist of fate proved that greed and manipulation never pay off in the long run. Leo, who once dreamed of a fancy sports car and a lavish wedding paid by someone else, could never hold down a steady job. After no relatives were willing to lend him money or cover his reckless spending, he was forced to take back-breaking warehouse shifts working night hours. He could no longer splurge on video games, alcohol and meaningless social outings. He had to rent a tiny, shabby single room on the outskirts of town, surviving on cheap instant meals just like old Zhou did 20 years ago, yet he still refused to reflect on his own laziness. Every once in a while, he would spot old Zhou's family strolling happily through the farmer's market or driving out for a weekend trip with his wife and daughter, and a bitter, jealous look would cross his face. But he knew full well he had no right to walk over and ask for any favor anymore, so he could only turn his head and slink away silently, trapped in the empty life he built through years of entitlement. And Mabel's small clothing stall folded completely after her toxic gossip ruined her reputation among local shoppers. She tried to beg other distant kin for investment funds to reopen her shop, yet everyone remembered how she'd slandered old Zhou for her own gain and turned her away without hesitation. Without extra cash to fund cosmetic treatments or expensive art classes for her daughter, the mother and daughter pair began to bicker non-stop at home. Her daughter, once spoiled by unrealistic hopes of overseas study funded by old Zhou, had to give up her artistic dreams and take a basic front desk job to scrape together living expenses. And Mabel no longer gathered a crowd of women to spread gossip at the market each morning. Now she kept to herself, too ashamed to talk about the schemes she plotted to leech off old Zhou's success. All the vanity she chased for decades crumbled to nothing, leaving her with only regret and empty days with no one willing to listen to her complaints. Uncle Ray's teenage son entered college with no free city apartment waiting for him. He had to squeeze into a cramped school dormitory with 3 roommates, work multiple part-time jobs every weekend to cover tuition and daily costs, and skip countless fancy outings his classmates enjoyed. He quickly realized how unrealistic his father's demands toward old Zhou had been. On school breaks, he would argue fiercely with Uncle Ray, blaming his dad's lazy mindset and endless begging for the tough life he had to endure. Uncle Ray lost all his previous bragging rights at family gatherings. Whenever elders brought up old steady, peaceful life, he would stare at the ground, unable to say a single word in defense of his past shameless requests for a fully furnished luxury house handed over for free. The rest of the extended family gradually drew a clear line between themselves and this trio of greedy kin. They saw firsthand how the three manipulated others for money, spread vicious rumors when their demands were rejected, and offered zero care to anyone facing hardship. During every subsequent spring festival, most relatives chose to gather at old Zhou's parents' quiet home instead of stopping by Aunt Mabel or Uncle Ray's place. They chatted warmly about simple daily joys instead of fixating on wealth and handouts, and they all respected old Zhou's clear boundaries without pushing him for any financial favors. A handful of thoughtful, grateful young cousins still visited old Zhou regularly, bringing homemade snacks, sharing trivial happy stories, and chatting about work and family without a single greedy request. Their gentle, mutual bond stood as a stark contrast to the parasitic relationship he endured in his younger years. As for old Zhou, every passing year only deepened his sense of calm and genuine happiness. His chronic high blood pressure and fatty liver improved drastically after years of regular walks, balanced home cooking and stress-free rest. The severe insomnia that haunted him for over 2 decades vanished entirely. He never again stayed up all night buried in endless business documents or rushed out mid-meeting to answer frantic calls from demanding relatives. His advisory work moved at a slow, comfortable pace, enough to maintain stable savings without draining all his energy. He set aside every weekend solely for his wife and daughter, morning bike rides by the lake, afternoon hikes in suburban woods, slow trips to local vegetable markets to pick fresh ingredients, and quiet balcony evenings sipping cheap but fragrant green tea while watching the sunset paint the sky soft orange. The gap between him and his wife closed completely. The cold indifference that lingered in their 200 square meter luxury home faded away, replaced by late-night chats just like the ones they shared back in the tiny urban village cubicle. They talked about trivial daily happenings, old sweet memories from their penniless youth, and simple small plans for the future. No talk of expensive real estate, luxury vehicles or big business contracts. His daughter grew bright, outgoing and secure, never again standing alone holding a cat waiting for a father distracted by other people's troubles. She would run to old Zhou the second she got home from school, rambling non-stop about class activities, art lessons and playground fun, knowing her dad would always pause whatever he was doing to listen carefully and respond with gentle laughter. On quiet rainy afternoons, old Zhou would sit alone on the balcony with his tea and reflect on the two wildly different halves of his life. He thought about the young man who chased wealth, status and others' praise like a starving man chasing bread, trading sleep, family warmth and inner peace for material success that brought nothing but hollow loneliness. He also thought of the man he'd become after waking up from that empty, glamorous nightmare, unhurried, uncompetitive, unburdened by other people's endless expectations. He no longer measured his worth by his bank balance or the number of people fawning over him at banquets. His greatest sense of achievement came from small, ordinary moments, cooking a pot of hot soup for his wife, listening to his daughter's rambling stories, walking slowly through the park without a buzzing work phone in his pocket, or haggling gently over a few cents with a vegetable vendor without a single trace of anxiety weighing on his chest. He once told me over tea, many years after cutting ties with the greedy branch of his family, that he finally understood the 8 words he lived by every single day: fight for what's yours, let go of what's not. Back when he chased every worldly marker of success, he clung tightly to things that never truly belonged to his heart: empty prestige, fake admiration, endless piles of money meant to satisfy other people's greed. Now he fought only for the people and small joys that mattered: his parents' peaceful old age, his wife's quiet comfort, his daughter's carefree childhood, and his own fragile physical and mental health. Anything that required him to sacrifice these precious treasures for someone else's selfish gain, he let go without a second thought. No guilt, no hesitation, no regret. Many strangers who heard his story would come to him for advice when they were trapped by entitled relatives draining their lives dry. Old Zhou never pushed anyone to cut off their kin harshly, but he always told them the same unshakable truth: kindness without boundaries is not virtue, it is self-sabotage. You can treat people with warmth and generosity, but never hand them unlimited power to drain your time, money and peace. If others respond to your goodwill with manipulation, gossip and endless demands, drawing a firm line is not cruelty, it is self-respect. You do not owe anyone a life of sacrifice just because you share a distant bloodline. Your immediate family, your health and your inner tranquility always come first, no matter what outdated family ethics others use to guilt-trip you. Now, when the wind drifts across the balcony at dusk and carries the sound of his daughter's laughter from the study, old Zhou will take a slow sip of plain green tea and smile to himself. All the frantic chasing, all the noisy vanity banquets, all the sleepless nights filled with worry over greedy relatives feel like a distant, faded dream. Happiness did not wait for him atop the cold, lonely mountain of wealth and fame. It waited for him at the foot of the hill, beside clear running streams, under soft sunset light, tucked inside every ordinary warm moment he almost threw away chasing approval from people who never cared about his true self. Those who drain you will always fade away once you stop feeding their greed, and the quiet, Genuine joy you ignored for decades will step gently into your life the moment you stop running after what never belonged to you. This is the final, unchanging truth old Zhou carried with him for the rest of his calm, fulfilling life.